Oh, Terramas, what did I do to deserve this agony of reviewing video games?
Cause you already called upon me in the last Halloween review?
Wait a second. I didn't call. Where does it say that I called you? No, I didn't, you damn liar!
Well, no, I just did.
Oh, you piece of shit! I'll get you for this.
No, not wear me, bitch.
Oh, wait. How the hell you smack me if you don't got any arms to begin with?
That ain't my arm, bitch.
No way. You just hit me with your.
I was messing with you. Now review Splatterhouse 2 so I can leave your presence.
Sequels can be good if done correctly. No, that's a very generic line. Sequels can make or break a game. Shit, that's not good at all. Splatterhouse 2 is basically the same as Splatterhouse 1, but now it's exclusive to the Genesis. End of review.
I'm still here, bitch.
Guess I can't avoid this. Splatterhouse 2 is a sequel to the original Splatterhouse, which was released in the arcades in the TurboGrafx 16, which is the version I reviewed last year. Splatterhouse 2 on the other hand is a Sega Genesis exclusive. The conjecture I can make out of this exclusivity rights is probably due to the fact that the TurboGrafx 16 did not sell so well in the West. Plus, let's not forget that at the time, Sega was not afraid to leave their games uncensored compared to their competitor Nintendo, who were infamously known for toning down blood and gore in their games. Take a look at Mortal Kombat's release for good measure. However, there were some issues in terms of copyright when it comes to bringing the game over to the West. Remember in the first game that Rick was wearing a mask that looked like Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th? Well, Namco didn't want to get into legal trouble, so he switched it to a red mask in the TurboGrafx version. In Splatterhouse 2, Namco redesigned the mask yet again. The mask in the Japanese version is the former kabuki mask, which is used in theater performances in Japan. However, the Western version was given a mask that looks like a skull, which looks like the sugar skulls you see in the Dia de los Muertos. Besides those changes, there's not that much between the games besides some change in text, which confuses the context and narrative in both games, but we will go over that later. So where were we left off after Splatterhouse 1? In short, due to fucked up events in the first game, Rick was forced to kill his girlfriend Jennifer due to the fact that she was transformed into a monster. This leads to Rick having a rampage throughout West Mansion, which leads to the destruction of the mansion itself. I know I'm missing important plot points, but I'm not spending the whole video going over the previous game. I'll leave a card so you can watch that video. Getting back on track, 3 months after those events, the Terror Mask was reformed and appears to Rick and tempts him to save his thought-to-be-dead girlfriend by going back to the house. Fun fact, this part of the story got lost in translation, which confused many Western players because they thought that the West Mansion was intact. But in reality, the charred ruins that make up the first stage is what's left of the West Mansion. In the Japanese version, the mask actually instructs Rick to find Jennifer in the so-called Hidden Mansion. I'm not kidding, that's what it's called. Blame the creators, not me.
But Jugs, that is a nice recap in the story and a good explanation of some of the technicalities, but what about actual gameplay?
I was just getting there. God. Rico is not having any patience with me today. I heard that. Oh shit. Never mind.
You know, I was going to crack a joke about the gameplay, but I'll be recycling jokes in the last video. Thank you very much. I'll be here all night. Thank you. But yeah, I ain't kidding about the recycled gameplay. Minus a couple of new weapons, it is just the same old punchy, kicking, and jumping. This in turn exposes the blandness of the game itself. This assumes if you played the game before this. You would expect the sequel to improve in the gameplay department, but you can't just flat out do a copy and paste job and change the story up a bit. What I can give the game credit for is that they retained the blood and gore. I mean, look at this. Whacking enemies to the wall still creates a blood splatter. Hell, even look at this boss fight. You're fighting against demon babies who are still hanging from the umbilical cords. I don't know how the hell they're being held up, but I'm afraid of ass at this point. Speaking of blood and gore, the monster designs look as grotesque as usual, and that is a good thing for a game like this. Even the death animations for the boss seem grotesque. Like the first boss, whose stomach just pops after you beat him. Also, word of advice, don't be near him when he pops because you'll take damage from the pool of acid he spills. I don't know about the other boss because I'm too much of a paranoid schmuck to take damage in a game this ruthless. The game looks good visually and all, but I have to knock it for its poor hit detection. I don't know why, but it has gotten worse since the first game. Keep in mind I've played and beaten this game multiple times and I still can't figure out the goddamn hit detection. It seems like the hitboxes have shrunk for the enemies and it shows during the boss fights. What seems to be a hit turns out to be a miss. And trust me, you don't want to miss your hits because enemies will hit you back after being left open for those couple of seconds. It makes the game cheap and unfair at some points. Don't even get me started with the smaller enemies because they have the tiniest hitboxes and it seems you have to hit them perfectly in order to do damage. For the crap I give the game, at least it has unlimited continues.
Get good news!
Had enough of your bullshit.
Now I got to talk about the level progression in this game. Minus all the BS I mentioned about hitboxes, each level has an ascending difficulty. The first 3 levels is the perfect way to introduce you to the game and what is to come. It teaches you basic mechanics, but the most important it teaches you is that enemies in this game fight in patterns. For a bunch of demons that are set out to kill Rick, they're way too easy to read at some point. Reading these patterns will help you find openings and enemies, and if you fail to do so, the enemies will take advantage of you till no end. By the time you make it to the 4th level boss, that is when the difficulty spikes up as a good way to test you to read patterns. Hell, I can say this boss gave me a hard time too when recording footage for this game. However, this concept gets thrown out the window because in later levels, especially the 8th level, makes the timing seem tighter than usual. Cheat bits will seem to come out of nowhere, and the only way to avoid those is straight up muscle memory, almost like a treasure shmup, and those games are a tier below bullet hell in my headcanon. Looking at you, Radiant Silvergun. Thankfully, you have a password system in the game that lets you skip to any level without any hassle. Just a little side note, when recording the game, I went to the game straight on. However, for extra footage, I used the password system to help me out with that. Cause you know, someone's gonna type in the comments saying, "You cheated, didn't you?" Just need to add a little bit of precaution for that. Anyways, by the time you make it to the final boss, you want this tediousness to end. It gets repetitive to the point of ad nauseam that I need Pepto-Bismol to clear this nausea. Like Mom Spaghetti.
Somebody please end it now.
Whatever you say, boss.
I meant figuratively, dumbass.
Well, maybe if you were clear, I wouldn't have to pull out a gun against you.
Well, maybe if you weren't a hockey match for a video game, your ass would have been in the trash a long time ago, if it had an ass to begin with.
Take that back, bitch.
No, I won't.
It's go time, you sack of meat.
Bring on, you plastic mold.
Okay, can we call truce for once and try to finish this video? So we go our separate ways.
Agreed.
Truce! Once you beat the final boss of the game, you are treated to a nice ending for all the hell that Rick went through, even though the mask threatens to come again. Besides that, it is a complete 180 if you actually play the first game all the way through. In the end, Splatterhouse feels...
Wait, you forgot the differences in the story depending on your region.
Oh yeah, I forgot, I mentioned that in the beginning of the review. Well, this is kind of awkward. Let's actually take a look at that before we close this review off, shall we? So if you recall from the beginning, due to translation mess-ups, the story isn't consistent between the Japanese version and the Western release. Now I'm going to pull up a few screenshots to show these differences and explain it to you. Also shout out to moviecensorship.com for pointing this out, or else I would have never figured this out on my own. So in the intro of the game, the mask of the US version flat out tells Rick that he needs the mask in order to save Jennifer, taking a more evil approach rather than a companion role in the Japanese version, who in turn tells Rick if he needs any help to come find the mask, like the mask is lending its power to Rick. There are minor differences too in the blurbs in between levels. I'll highlight some of them. In stage 5, the Japanese version says, "I have arrived in the ominous house," while the Western version says, "Jennifer must be somewhere in there." In stage 6, the Japanese version points out that the diary has a secret incantation to bring back life, while the Western version literally ignores that and says there must be a secret within the diary. The incantation was recited in stage 7 says, "Utter names of the ancient gods, door to the land of the dead shall be opened." The Western version says the mask can open a portal to the void. Either the Japanese must think we are dumb, or someone in the translation team doesn't know how to translate too well. Even the ending is not safe from translational differences too. In the US version, there is a threat that as long as the mask exists, Rick will have to go through this hell yet again. However, in the Japanese version, Rick and Jennifer are given a happy ending, even though the mask said, and I quote, "Don't forget, you removed the forbidden seal. See you again. Goodbye." It's almost as if Rick depends on this mask for survival on whatever is about to come. Hence why Splatterhouse 3 exists. But we will not talk about that game just yet. So are you pleased now, Terror Mask?
Yes, now you go right ahead.
In the end, Splatterhouse is a complete copy and paste job from Splatterhouse 1. It's just plain and simple. I can give the game credit for keeping its consistency, but with sequels, everybody expects improvement, but it decides to take a couple of steps back from the first game, and that doesn't help its case at all. Hitbox detection, random difficulty spikes, and many more mired this game down to mediocrity. I bet you when the developers saw the reviews for this game at the time, they took it into account and made a better game out of it. I mean, Splatterhouse 3 is my favorite game in the series, and there's no doubt about it. With all that said, Splatterhouse 2 gets a... out of 10.
Ah, you finally completed the review. I guess this is my cue to leave. Sayonara, motherfuckers. Till next Halloween.
At least he's gone for another year. Gotta prepare for next year, as a matter of fact. Where's my bat?